Welcome, true believers. Is I Shane, and I'm here to give you a Loki episode review and recap. What is Loki, you say? Because you probably weren't expecting this. It's a Wednesday. What's going on here? Loki is the next, MCU, Disney Plus, Marvel television show. And if you've guessed by the title, it's about Loki, obviously. Uh, kind of been excited for this show. It's supposed to show up sometime in March, I believe, but they pushed it back. And it looks like June is here before you realize it. Instead of showing up on Friday, it is on a Wednesday, which will make doing these a little bit easier, I think. There's a lot to unpack. I got some notes typed up right here. And before we get into it, I want to ask you to please like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate that. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers. Thank you for your time. So, as we begin, this episode is called Glorious Purpose. That sounds familiar. It's literally the quote Loki used in the 2012 movie Marvel's Avengers, saying that he has a glorious purpose. We are sent all the way back to 2012 and the attack of New York, that whole Chitauri attack from the Avengers movie. And the Avengers are locking up Loki. We've already done the 6 surrounding him and him wanting the drink. But it isn't technically that movie we're looking at. We're actually looking at what happened in Endgame, with Tony and Steve going back in time along with Bruce to try to get that Tesseract so they can make the new Infinity Gauntlet. Well, of course, things do not go right. The Tesseract falls. Loki grabs it and bam, send it out. So she took and Tesseract Cube, same thing. Well, we are then quickly sent to the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. Nice little shot here. Really good cinematography, seeing the bead of water on the sand and the beetle walking through it. Loki comes out of the sky, crash lands, and Mongolian people approach him. And he uses the same speech that he used, I want to say, in France. It's the first time he fought Captain America. Talking about he has a glorious purpose. My name's Loki. And the Mongolian woman steps up. She's like, I don't understand what you're saying. Who are you? And I think Loki can understand her, which it's kind of is a little bit funny. A little bit of ways, literally almost out of nowhere, but there's a little screen. These agent-looking people walk through. They're about to surround Tesseract, and Loki says, "Don't touch that." Uh, the one agent that we're supposed to pay attention to, this black woman, I actually didn't pay attention to what this agent's name was. Uh, she comes up and says that, we're here to get you, Variant. We're gonna reset this timeline. And Loki basically says, I'm done taking orders from idiots in suits and armored suits. Goes to attack her, and she hits him with this stick. That once he gets hit, he is in a 1/6 or 1/16th speed of time. We watch his mouth move as he's getting hit. Maybe seen slow motion boxers get hit in the face, something like that. She slaps a collar around him, which returns him back to normal time. She picks up the Tesseract. Someone puts down Lil Pod, and they are going to reset. uh, yeah, I did put in notes about how I felt about this. I think it's mostly because they're basically cops and they're being stereotypical jackasses. Those are the vibes. I don't like it. It's just Loki. This is still 2012 Loki, so he's a jerk, but it's like Anyway, uh, he, he's basically saying, he's throwing out threats saying, if you cross me, there's gonna be deadly consequences. Apparently now they are in this area where there's a desk, a guy in the middle of this desk, and someone else is being checked in. She gives him the cube, tells him, "Hey, put this in evidence." She's being rude to her own coworker, mind you. And Loki is now thrown into this room where a robot with a very 60s, 70s archaic looking robot is trying to undress him. He's saying this is fine Asgardian leather. That's why I wore Thor. Uh, and in one fell swoop, it turns around and you can hear the robot saying, "Please remain perfectly still." Completely eviscerates his clothes. The clothes are gone. The collar's still there. And then, of course, you get the money shot for the ladies of Loki being, excuse me, Tom Hiddleston in all his glory. Bet they would never do that with. Anyway. So he's quickly falling through the floor. He's now in a jumpsuit. And he's before a guy, and you've probably seen the commercial where he gives him a stack of paper, says, "This is everything that you've ever said. Please sign here." What? Another paper comes out, and here. This is ridiculous. And another paper comes here. And Loki, he catches on quickly and just shuts up, signs his name once, falls through the floor again. Now this time it's like a metal detector, and there's a little person there. The little person asks, "Are you, to the best of your knowledge, not a robot? And are you a being that would consider themselves to have a soul?" And he's like, "Would I know if I was a robot?" Sometimes you wouldn't step through. He's like, "What was this do if I'm a robot?" It'll melt him from the inside out. And it's pretty funny. And it's pretty interesting that Loki doesn't even know if he's not a robot. And he actually poses the question: there are people who don't know that they're robots. Of course, he passes the test, but a photo was taken of his temporal aura. And the guy even goes, doesn't matter. They're shooing him off. He's in a room, now in a room that's very reminiscent of the DMV, probably in the 70s of the DMV. There's a guy before him that's giving one of the armed guards a guff about having to take a ticket. Doesn't take a ticket. Basically, big F you. And Loki's like, "Why do I need one of these when there's just two of us?" Loki does take a ticket. He goes to the left while the guy goes to the right. At this point, we get a very 60s, 70s cartoon of Miss Minute, who explains, who are the Time Variance Authority. Time Variance Authority is an actual group. They did not make this up. Their first appearance was actually in 1986 in Thor issue 376. Yeah, uh, that old. Just like most of our Marvel MCU television shows, a lot of its core materials coming from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Interesting. So Miss Minute, the mascot, says, "So let's explain what's going on. Sometimes, or not sometimes, there was a massive multiverse war that threatened to destroy everything and everyone. And then the Timekeepers appeared. And once the war was over, they decided to reset all of the timelines into one sacred timeline. The Time Variance Authority, they were created, the workers they were created to keep this timeline in check. And you, if you're standing here, you're a variance. Even if you, now this is what kills me. Even if you are late to work, or maybe you start a rebellion, you split off the timeline. You splintered it off. Their job is to grab you, reset the timeline, and get rid of you. That's all there is to it. And the interesting symbolism for the variants is you have the normal looking sketch person with the oval head, then you have a diamond head, triangle head, star head, things of that nature. So while Loki is still in disbelief, not really believing what's happening to him, we have that same gentleman that's ahead of him, and there's another armed guard saying, "Where's your ticket?" And he's like, "The guy didn't tell me to get one." Obviously lying. This guy is being a little shit. Saying, "Where's your ticket?" He didn't tell me to get one. Why do I gotta get one? What's this? Guy just pokes him with the stick. Literally, he's destroyed. Just gone. And Loki looks for his ticket from his jumpsuit. He's like, "I got one." And this is where we get our title card sequence. I just interjecting again myself. I really don't like the fact that if you're late to work, and that's just the smallest thing, you can still become erased. You're a variant of yourself, but you can still become erased from existence because of that. There's more to this. So we have Owen Wilson. Wow, Mr. Wow. He's at a church, which we find out is in some time in France. He's with this other time, they call them time hunters, this other time hunter agent. All their agents are being killed one by one. We're talking about stab wounds that are literally the same size. That's interesting. Now this time agent guy, apparently, I can't tell um, if this is a little boy or a little girl, but a child runs by. He's ready to attack the kid, and Owen Wilson has to tell him, "No, what are you doing? It's just a kid." Walks up, speaks French, calls him an imbecile. The other guy says, "I can speak the language of this time too." Calls him a jackass, but he asks if they know who did this, and before he asks, it's an interesting little device. He draws a stick figure and tells him to tap the screen and makes the figure move. And I don't know if they plan on speaking half English, half French, or maybe they just did it to say, "Hey, you guys know they're speaking French," but they kind of go in and out just a little bit. So when asking who did this, she points to, or they point to, a stained glass window, and it's literally the devil. It's just horns, red skin and horns. I hate to do this to you guys. Before I even watch this episode, it has been said by Marvel that this is not Mephisto. And I know that they're right, but they could also be wrong. I will explain that later because Marvel lies. They lie all the time. They put out a whole trailer for Infinity War that a bunch of stuff that didn't happen. But I will get back to. I'm gonna make sure I get back to Mephisto. But Owen Wilson says you don't have to worry about that devil. He asks about the child's mouth. Like, your mouth is blue. What's going on with that? She gives him, or they give him, some blue chew. Looks like 60s, 70s candy. He asks his other time hunter, "Can you scan this? Maybe we can get some type of clue what time this is from." He says it probably not going to work just like all the other times. He just tells them to do it anyway. So he's also informed that the branch is nearing the red. So they have a little device that shows the timeline and shows the branches, and the branches increasingly go up. There's a red line to which there's no way you can reverse the timeline. That is probably something important to note. I'm going to get back to that as well. Tells her don't worry about everything. Tells the kid to run along. They're gonna reset the timeline. There's a time reset bomb thing that we see. We're gonna see it several times in this episode. We see it earlier, and from one of those screen temporal doors, someone comes out with a file and says, "Sir, I want you to look. You might want to look at this." He sees Loki file. And one of the coolest things is that Loki's picture with the apprehended thing. It reminds me so much of Days of Future Past, the famous comic book cover where it's Logan and Kitty Pryde, and you either see slain or apprehended. I think Marvel vs. Capcom 3 replicated that as well. So, just something that caught my eye. As I continue, Loki's now in the courtroom, and in the courtroom is the actual three faces of the timekeepers. I'll show you what these ugly suckers look like. Quite seriously, guys, they took their faces straight out of the comic book. That's exactly what these ugly, ugly, ugly characters look like. I call them the tribunal, but they're not the tribunal. I'll get back to that in a moment. So he's there on trial. The judge didn't catch their name. A lot of these characters, I don't even think they tell you their name. I didn't bother looking at the credits. It's a busy Wednesday. Anyway, she asks, how does he plead? Does he plead guilty of messing with the timeline or not guilty? And Loki more or less goes off. Also, they call him Lofi's son. It's Lafi's son. Tiny little nitpick. It sounds so ugly the way he said his last name. Anyway, Loki's saying you should be blaming the Avengers. They're the ones that went back in time, probably to stop me from becoming king. Loki knows that there were two Tony Starks. He said he can smell his cologne. So Loki is very intelligent, very astute. He's a god, so he can pay attention to these things. I think. I don't know if being a god is what lends to that, but he's very astute. And he's offering, saying, I'll go back and I'll end them. I'll stop all this. And she said, no, the Avengers were doing what they were supposed to do. The timeline is uh, measured and controlled by the timekeepers. That's what they were supposed to do. You weren't supposed to grab the Tesseract. And Loki is Loki. He's having a hard time listening to this because he's not buying the whole "you guys control everything and let everything happen how it's supposed to happen." No one controls me. So he try to use his magic, his powers, and magic does not work there. Wherever space they are, which in the comics is the null time zone, just infinite nothing almost, but his powers doesn't work there. And because he does a nice little speech of saying, guilty of doing this, wants to attack, can't attack. He's about to be what's the word they used? I'm actually gonna go through my notes real quick. I actually don't remember the notes they use, but it's kind of like they're gonna be he's gonna be reset. Reset literally just he's gonna be killed because he's not supposed to be there. And he's again Loki's having a hard time. He's like, this is not how my story ends. And she says, it's never been about you. This is not your story. This isn't this doesn't concern you. This isn't about you at all. Which stings. Owen Wilson, he has seen this whole trial. He came in from behind, talks to the judge. Apparently, him and her have some type of rapport. She knows what he's gonna say. He's just saying, let me talk to him. He gets Loki out of the hands of, I call her Big Barda, but whatever her name is, rough fake Judge Dredd lady. And Loki's looking at all the architecture because they're walking through the halls. They're in an elevator, and he introduced himself as Mobius B. Mobius. Uh, Small interjection here. Owen Wilson looks exactly like Mobius from the comics, and it's fairly, really, really interesting. It's just a simple mustache and everything, but it looks just like him. Anyway, he explains where they are, who they are, again, letting Loki know what's going on. One thing I did forget to mention is when the Tesseract was given as evidence, Loki tried to make a run for it, and the collar, if you have the controller, you hit it, the person just gets rewound back to a starting point over and over again. That comes into play later. So he's explaining to Loki where he is. As soon as they step out and he looks out, he says, I thought you said there's no magic here. He's like, there isn't any magic here. And just the architecture, there's the three timekeeper statue, there's tons, and you've never seen anything like this. This doesn't look anything like Asgard or Wakanda. This is his complete own thing. Looks pretty amazing. And Loki's saying he's gonna burn the place down, and Mobius is literally just placating. He's like, yeah, well, if you want to do that, please start with my desk first. And Loki's saying this place is a nightmare. And he's like, that's actually a place you could burn down. So we're getting the literal confirmation that Nightmare is a place. I don't know if it's a place within the TVA, but it's a place. So now they're in another elevator where tons of symbols are all over the place. One of the symbols look like the Fies symbol from Kamen Rider Fies. There's like a zigzag thunderbolt. There's so much. There's an S and an F. Just things that don't make any sense. When Loki asks how long he's been there, he doesn't know because again, time works very much differently. So Loki's like, what does he want? Did he bring him there to kill him? He just wants to talk to him. And of course, he uses the rewind when Loki tries to get the jump on him. And literally, when Loki's talking about he's dangerous, he Mobius literally says you're not the most dangerous variant by far. He is a kitten compared to other things that they have and are dealing with. So he literally asks him, what's your goal? What are you trying to do? He wants to be king of Midgard. Okay, you want to be king of Earth. Well, why not king of space? And Loki's like, don't insult my intelligence. Like, I'm not. I'm really smart. Of course you are. I know you are. Okay. Loki, and when he's saying, why is a guy with like you with so much range just want to focus on ruling? And he was saying that he's doing it for other people, having freedom, It's a danger, and it's an illusion. He says a really long speech. I did not write down word for word. Please go watch it yourself. And what Mobius says, what he's saying is, it's designed to make you sound smart. And of course, he placates him again with the saying, "I know you're smart." So he has this machine that shows him what happened in 2012. He says, for a guy that has a glorious purpose, do a lot of losing. And he tries to give. I haven't seen this. I don't even know the last time I actually saw one of these retro things. He tries to give him a Shasta Cola. Wow, interesting choice of time period when it comes to the TVA. Anyway, what he's like. What are you supposed to be, the liberator of eyeballs? He shows him happily taking the eyeball out in Avengers. He's saying, you kill Phil Coulson. What was the purpose of doing that? He's like, to assert my dominance. And he said, well, literally, you had 6 people who avenged him and beat you. You caused them to beat you. Um, he's like, what are you supposed to be, the God of mischief? Mischief. He's like, I don't know. You're not doing a lot of mischievous things. You're killing people. Do you enjoy hurting and killing people? And Loki doesn't really give him an answer. But we do get some new footage of apparently Loki being on a plane. Has to be 60s or 70s now. I think it was 60s or 70s. And he's flirting with the flight attendant. And he says, oh, by the way, I have a bomb on the plane. The plane is grounded. He gets his money and flirts with her again. And he's muttering that Thor and Heimdall better be ready because he jumps off the plane, and of course the Rainbow Bridge carries him right back up to Asgard. And he's like, "What was the deal with that? You were B.D. Cooper." He's saying, "I lost a bet to Thor. That's the only reason why he did that." And he asks him, what are you running from?" And he wants him to be honest and answer why is Loki doing the things that he does. And he believes that his choices are his own. Doesn't he's not being controlled, or his actions aren't decided by some greater entities. And Mobius shows him literally what was supposed to happen. He's supposed to be in prison on Asgard. Meets his mom. Tells his you get the moment in Thor: Dark World where she's trying to tell him, I'm your mom. He's like, no, you're not my mom. He's just being an asshole. And he says, you got your mom killed. And I did not pick up on this. This is actually new information for me after years and years of watching Thor: Dark World. He sent the Dark Elves up to the right, thinking they were sending them to Thor, when they really went to his mother. And I thought they just had found her. I didn't realize that he actually led them to her. He got his mother killed. He doesn't even believe it's true. He asks, "Where is she?" He's showing concern, and he's asking him over and over again, you got your mother killed. Do you enjoy hurting and killing people? And he says, what you're doing, all the evil that you're doing, you're just bringing the best out of other people. You're letting them be the best version of themselves, showing the Avengers once again. And he almost makes a joke about him, you know, double crossing large authority figures. Doesn't show him what happens fully. Stops with the whole his mom getting killed. Suddenly, Judge Barda comes in. She's arguing with him about having Loki there, and something was going on. They lost more agents. Mobius wants to table this with Loki for the next day. I don't know how they figure out what the day is. And through all this, Loki has disappeared because during the scuffle, because Loki tried to get up, he got rewound. He's like, I just wanted to get up for dramatic effect, and he kicked his chair. He got rewound again and was on his butt. Mobius helped him get up, but during this time, he stole his little rewounder thing. So you have Loki stealthily moving around. He finds the same guy. His name is Casey, who's working at the desk. And we get some weird things. Casey, he says he's gonna gut him like a fish, and Casey like, well, what's a fish? How do you not know what a fish is? I've lived behind a desk my entire life. The people who work there, who look like normal humans, are actually just made and bred to be in this space and work. Of crazy bit of trivia. That's actually true. Most people in the TSAs in the comics are actually cloned from a set individual. Pardon me, from a set individual, just to not have any mutations. Even though sometimes some occur, but they have recruited other people like the Justice Peace. Literally, their name, Justice Peace. Uh, yeah. So, and he wants to know. He doesn't. He wants to understand. The reference to know how much danger he's in. He's like, it's a really bad thing. And he pulls out the little drawer. Loki finds the Tesseract, and inside this drawer, I couldn't really make out the other things that were in there because there was tons of other things in there. But there's literally two space stones, three power stones, four four red ones, two blue ones. There's a bunch of infinity stones in there, refined and unrefined. And Loki's like, if you have infinity stones in here, he's like, oh, that's what these things are called. Yeah, some of us is just use them as paperweights. They come in all the time. That's huge implications to say that multiple characters have tried to run off with the Infinity Stones only to have been caught by them and they kept them. I guess by resetting the timeline, it resets the stones. That's crazy. I'm getting ahead of myself. I actually want to know what happens with Captain America regarding all this. I digress, though. I digress. Before Loki's captured by Big Barda Lady, he has a little tussle with her. She actually destroyed the desk that had all those extra Infinity Stones. Didn't care about Casey. Casey, like, you could have killed me. You could have zapped me out of existence. Loki rewinds himself back to where he started in a little office, and he decides to press play. He sees the moment in Ragnarok where Odin dies and tells him, where Odin calls both of them his sons and that he loves them both. He sees him and Thor standing side by side. He sees on Sakaar where Thor says, I've always loved you. It's just you've always fought me and done all these things. And we get real emotion from Loki. Loki is in tears at all of this. And he sees him standing side by side with Thor with his eye ripped out. Thor right before Thanos attacks, and he gets the moment of he sees his own death. He sees that he tries to kill Thanos. He sees Thanos snap his spine, and snap his neck, and Thor's crying over his body. And Loki just starts to laugh. He's now at the point where he's seen how his story ends, and he's seen the truth of how those close to him actually feel about him, how much they actually love him. So Big Barda Lady comes in, another tussle, but Loki somehow is smart enough to get his collar around her neck and does the repeat thing on her over and over again to mess with her and ultimately sends her further back to where she started before. Eventually, Mobius comes in, with the stick, he's ready, and, he asks him, so you try to use the Tesseract? He's like, I've tried to use it several times, but even Infinity Stones are nothing in this place. And Loki just comes right out and says, I don't enjoy hurting people. I don't enjoy killing people. He does it because he had to, and it's all a part of the illusion. It's a desperate play to show that you are in power. And he's saying, Loki's just like, I'm a villain. And Mobius says, I don't necessarily agree with that. And he wants Loki to help him. Prove that you're not the villain. And Loki's like, who do you want me to get? I want you to get you. There's another variant of Loki who is the one out there killing everybody. Which is interesting to note this because now we are shot to 1858 in Salina, Oklahoma. There's a little, we see 4 time agents walk through that little sliver. There's a radical looking future year 3000, 5000 shovel. Thought it was a sword, but it was a shovel. He said, oh, some idiot came back to strike it rich because there's nothing but oil. There's a little farmhouse down by the way, but there's nothing but oil. But they see somebody in the distance in the thicket with a lantern. They move forward with their little weapons ready. All this person does is drop the lantern, lights up all this oil, and they start to burn alive. The main guy, the guy who was a jerk to Mobius, he was the lead on this, and he's trying to crawl his way out. He gets pulled back in, and this hooded figure is just before he can reset the timeline with a reset bomb. The hooded figure pulled him back in. He's dead, and the hooded figure takes the little reset rewinding bomb thing, and that's where our episode ends. I know I got you to 30 minutes, so give me 5 minutes to just talk about what the heck is going on. Well, first of all, uh, I enjoyed this show. It didn't do anything super spectacular, so I gotta give it like a 4 out of 5. It's first of all, it's very compelling, and especially if you don't know anything about old comics, if you're not going to research anything about old comics, this is compelling. You wonder where is this going. And actually, one of the complaints was there's too many flashbacks. I'm gonna play devil. I can't play devil's advocate. Let's keep it 100%. If they didn't explain where this Loki came from, because we saw Loki die at the very beginning of Infinity War, and then we did see him escape towards the middle-ish of Endgame. Where did this guy come from? We've known the whole time that this is that Loki that they were going to make the show about. So, what the heck is going on here? What is this based on? Well, the TVA, they had their start in Thor. Actually, the Time Keepers had their start in Thor as well. In 1976, I forget what issue, Thor actually defeated some evil timekeepers. There was like a timeline where the timekeepers were alive or the timekeepers died, or the evil timekeepers died. They were called the time. Oh Lord, the time. I think time winders. Evil version of timekeepers. Those bad guys were killed. In one timeline, they aren't. In other, they are. And the timekeepers are ruling. So those two are at odds with one another. And actually, in the comics, the TVA they try to be keepers of the multiverse. They don't rule over just one timeline, and I suspect that this is a lie. And that whatever section of this massive eon that they're in, I think they handle a certain section of the timeline. Could run for thousands of years, but I think the timekeepers are lying to them. That there's still a multiverse out there because you can't stop this, or because while we have our movie verse, we still have our 616 and our 1616 and our 3341s of Marvel Comics. Perhaps there has been a splinter because if there's a red line that the branches shouldn't get to, and I'm gonna assume that once they get to that red line, there's no turning back. That's probably what has happened with this variant Loki going about killing them. I suspect that this Loki was probably plucked far, far earlier than what happened with the Avengers. Probably to a point where Loki was at his most evil or at his lowest. Because it stands to believe when you hear about the dagger stabbings and the wounds, it leads you to believe, okay, this was a Loki that like our Loki from 2012 was like, hey, cool. So you guys say you're gonna control everything I do. So you're the reason why all this crap is happening to me. Cool. I'm gonna take care of all of you. I'm just gonna kill all of you, get rid of you, and let things happen naturally, right? Also, there are different versions of Loki in the comics. There's Kid Loki, who was literally the reset of Loki. His everything that was good about him and actual mischievous had a really great relationship with Thor, but he was tricked into giving his body up to the evilness that was Loki. No one forgave Loki for doing that. That's a really sad. But Kid Loki ends so sadly. Um, there's also Lady Loki, which in the comics after Ragnarok, Loki took Sif's body to mess with Thor because Sif and Thor were lovers. They were together. This whole Jane Foster thing, get it out of here. No, it was Lady Sif and Thor, which MCU has done Sif pretty bogusly, but I digress. Perhaps with this variance thing, we can actually get a actress to play a Lady Loki instead of there being male Loki. There is Lady Loki. I'm a big fan of Lady Loki. Lady Loki is amazing. She's a boss. She's amazing. She actually shows up again somewhere down the line in the comics where Lady Loki is canon. So, uh, 4 out of 5 for me. I enjoyed the look of it and everything, and I understand the complaints, but you got to do your flashbacks sooner or later. Um, what can happen from here? Everyone's looking for the existence of mutants, but I'm gonna take it one step further. In the comics, there's a thing called the Exiles. The Exiles are literally 4 to 6 different X-Men characters or people involved with the X-Men who are either the actual main timeline X-Men or people like Sabretooth from Age of Apocalypse, who's a good guy. He was pulled in. We have Psylocke from 616 pulled in. Different characters. There was even a whole team of Wolverines. You had Gay Cowboy Wolverine. You had Young Wolverine. You had like Ninja Wolverine. 6 different Wolverines all on one team to complete a mission. Something like this can actually lead into, all right, well, I'm unsatisfied with what the Timekeepers did. We're going to use this group of individuals and have them take care of everything, especially if it deals with mutant kind. Obviously, Nathaniel Richards, Kang the Conqueror, comes from this, but another major character, Immortus, who is also Nathaniel Richards, who pretended to be Kang, but is not really Kang, but he's Nathaniel Richards from a different part of the timeline. He worked for the Timekeepers, the TVAs, and the Timekeepers. The Timekeepers wanted to annihilate the Fantastic Four. It's a whole big deal, but it's a whole big deal. But time travel kit confuses a lot of people. Lesser minds and people who don't think to look things up or research things or go, well, I really don't care about it, but I'm still going to complain about it. Those things are going to confuse people. I don't really care. Just do what you got to do. Those two characters can pop up. I imagine that Kang will probably be one of these people who work in the TVAs who's probably like, this is really dumb that we keep massacring people. Or he could have been in charge of a section, like Immortus was in charge of 20,000 AD to 30,000 AD because he had to pay for his crimes against the timeline. He could have been like, I don't like what I'm seeing. The Timekeepers are supposed to be around until the eventual end of the universe, but yeah, this is all just ridiculousness. Um, yeah, this is supposed to be 6 episodes. I imagine each episode is supposed to be close to an hour. This was 52 minutes with a lot of credits at the end. Also, they already want to do 2 and 3 seasons of this. I'm fairly interested in the outcome of all of this for them to already want to give it more seasons. And not just because of fanfare, because this got a IGN gave this a 7. Uh, I was supposed to bring up the Mephisto thing. It's probably Loki. Remember, Loki wears horns, so probably the evil Loki probably resembles Mephisto, or Loki is a god. Maybe he actually becomes Mephisto. He is a variant. They are variants. Who knows? But yeah, that's what I think of the show. I believe I hit all of the points I wanted to hit, except for this. The reason why this is Loki. Please look up the comic Loki, Agent of Asgard. It's literally Loki doing things for the All Mother and the Tribunal. He wants to get parts of his evil past to be wiped out of all of history just so he can be a better person and not be evil. But of course, his first mission, he takes the evilness from the Dark Elves out of Thor, tells them don't open, they open it, and of course, all the evilness turns into another version of Loki. So that might also be what's going on. Yeah, I can't remember the name of that opening, but Loki, Agent of Asgard, is only 17 issues. Please take a look at it. Find it online. Again, tell me what you think down in the comments below. Give me a like. Let me know if you enjoyed this. Let me know if you enjoyed the first episode. Please remember to subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Be notified of more videos like this. I enjoy doing these. I enjoy giving you play-by-plays and inserting the little tidbits that you might miss and telling you what might happen. I have no clue what's going to happen in episode 2. I'm not even going to guess. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next Wednesday. Please remember to stop on by. I appreciate your time. As always, be good, be blessed, wash your hands, wear a mask, Black Lives Matter, and I will definitely see you next time.